Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today I decided to make this video talking about how to basically start working with a MERN stack. So this is a beginner video for the MERN stack, and I know I've made a video about like a beginner tutorial about MERN before. However, I believe, like after rewatching that videos, I believe that I didn't do the best job I could at explaining, especially because I used like setting up the database. I showed it to you guys how to set up an external database. I used Atlas, but that's definitely not something that is the easiest when you're a beginner. So we're actually going to use our local database, which is what most people do when they're starting. So this is a beginner tutorial. We're going to be talking about inserting and getting stuff from our database using React, Node, Mongo, and yeah, that's an Express, right? So the first thing you need to do in this tutorial is download MongoDB Compass. So I use MongoDB Compass. If you don't know what it is kind of like just a way to visualize your database, and you really want something like this, a database visualizer, because it's really useful. You're able to do a lot of stuff with it, and I believe Compass is the main one, right? It's by MongoDB. You can see I'm on the MongoDB website, and I'm gonna leave the link for download in the description. It's free, obviously, and you just download it into your operating system, and that's fine. So let's get into our project. And before we actually get into our project, I want to tell you guys, I want to ask you guys to leave a like down below, because it will help the algorithm. And I know every YouTuber says this, and I used to like not care that much, but I'm just asking you because I'm posting every single day, and I would really appreciate if you guys could leave a like and comment down below, because that would help me a lot with my videos. So we can see right here, we have a single project in our VS Code. I open up a folder called MERN Beginners. That's what I called my project. And the only thing I did was I created two folders, a client and a server folder. Why do I do this? Well, when you're working with MERN, you have to work with the front end and the back end. The front end is React, right? The back end is Node, Express, and MongoDB. So how do you actually make a project that has both? Well, there's various different ways, but the main one and the one I'm going to be teaching is dividing it into two parts. So the client is where we're going to have the React part, and the server is where we're going to have the Node, Mongo, and Express. So how do we actually divide it? Well, I'm inside of my MERN beginners, as you can see on my terminal here. I'm going to navigate towards basically the client. So I'm going to say change directory client. Now I'm inside of the client folder, and I'm going to write npx create react app and a dot. That basically will create a React app inside of the client folder, and that's good for now. So we're going to open up a new terminal in VS Code by clicking on this, and you can see that since we navigated to the client previously, we were still in the client folder, but now we want to start building our server. So let's get out of the client by writing change directory and two dots. Now when I'm on the MERN beginners again, and then I'll go to the server folder, and now I'm inside of the server. So inside of here, what I want to do is basically run either npm init or yarn init. If you're a beginner, you know that there's two things you need. You need either npm or yarn, because they will allow you to install packages. I'm using yarn, but if you're using npm, again, it's just the same thing, but change the word to npm. So let's write yarn init, and then a bunch of questions appear here. You can see it's asking for a name. I would recommend just pressing enter for all of them. It doesn't really matter. Until the end, it will say done, as you can see right here. And in our left, the React is starting to be built. And if we open up our server folder, now it has a package.json, which is great. But we need to install some stuff. For example, we need to install Express. So how do we install Express? Express is a framework, so we need to install it by writing yarn add express. So when we say that, and if you're using npm, it's npm install express. You can see now two things appear. First of all, yarn.lock, we don't care about that, and node modules, we also don't care about that. But the really important thing is that Express is installed in our package.json. Then I'm going to install Mongoose, which is basically, imagine like this. You're working with MongoDB, and you want to have an arm. So you can do it without an arm, but like an arm is just a way to make it so that you're making queries, or you're making like requests to your database a lot easier. And Mongoose is definitely the way to go. Most people who work with MongoDB use Mongoose. So I would recommend installing it, and that's what we're going to be working, like that's what with like the dependency and that we're going to be using for our project. You can see right here Mongoose is installed, and we just installed both of them, and you can see in our clients it finished, but we also need one more thing to be installed, which is course. So yarn add course, and don't worry about course. If you watched any of my videos, you know that course is just a package that we need to have if we have this kind of like aspect of working with an API, which is our backend, and a frontend. To make the connection between both of them, we need to have course. So that's very simple. Just know that you have to have that, or else you'll get issues. So now let's focus on our React project. So you can see when we open client, we have our everything about React over here. We have our src, and usually when I start a project, I just want to delete some stuff from the React. So let's delete the tests, let's delete the index.css, the logo, and the setup tests. So that's fine. Let's click delete and move to trash. Okay, now we only have the app.css, app.js, index.js, and report web vitals.js. And since we deleted some stuff, we need to kind of delete the imports. For example, in index.js, it was importing index.css, and we just deleted index.css. So we need to kind of like fix that. Also in app.js, it already starts with a bunch of stuff which we don't want, because that's kind of like the starter application in React. And also it was importing a logo which we deleted. And now on app.css, I'm just going to delete everything but the first, like this right here. But this is the only thing we're going to leave. Let's save it. And now if I can come here to my terminal, you can see I'm inside of the client. So I'm in the React part. I can just say yarn start, or again, if you're using npm, you can write npm start, and it's going to start a React application in our, like it's going to go to the localhost 3000, which is the standard one, and it's going to show our application. You can see there's nothing because we haven't actually done anything, but if I came here to our app.js and I wrote whatever, it would show whatever I wrote. So it means our application is working. So what do we want in our application? Well, basically, I want to make an application where you are able to, let's say, you're able to add friends. So we have a database which is going to be called friends, and like a collection which is going to be called friends, and you can add data into there where basically represents a friend of you. So basically I want to add a friend. A friend usually has a name, an age, something like that. So that's the application we're building. Just a website where there's going to be some inputs where we can write information about our friends. We're going to click on a button which will add that information to the database, and if we want to see all the friends we have, we can click on the button and it will get all that information from the database and show it to us. So that's the idea, right? So instead of starting by the React part, we're going to start with the backend, and that, like, I think that's better to understand, especially because this is the hardest part about MERN. I would recommend only learning MERN if you've worked with a bit with React before. So that's my point, you know. I assume that you already know a bit about React. Don't need to like be an expert or anything, just the basics. And that's why we're going to start with the backend. So in the server folder, we're going to create a file called index.js, and we call it index.js because in our package.json it says that the main file is index.js. If you want to call it something else, you have to change it here too. So over here, the first thing we want to do is we want to import the express variable. So we're going to come here and say require express. That's basically the idea of how you're going to set up a simple express server. Then we're going to require app, which is equal to express. So express, this is the standard. You call express, then you call app and set it equal to express. And now, right at the bottom, we can say app.listen, pass the port that we want. So our React port is 3000. Let's create one in the 3001. So 3001. And when we are connected to our server, let's basically just write a simple message saying you are connected, something like that. And to do that, we're basically passing a function over here, and we're console logging inside of here the message you are connected. Okay, so let's save this, and in order to run our server, we can just come here to the server part, so the terminal with the server, and write node index.js. And you can see it says you are connected because it ran. And if I came here to my to this over here, I can just say localhost 3001, and when you see this message, it means it's working. So this means it's working, and I know it says error, but that means it's working, and you'll see why. So now that we got our server basically set up, let's start working with the Mongo part of our project. So basically what we need to do is we need to go to our MongoDB Compass, the program that I told you to install. What happens is we're going to create a connection to our local database. So our machine will be our database. How do we make the connection? Well, you put this link right here, and this is the link that we're going to put inside of our MongoDB Compass to basically create a connection. And I'm going to leave this link in the description. You can put it on yours too, and this is why I left it over here. In order to do that, you'll see there's going to be something like this, and you can just click like edit, and you can put this over here. You copy and paste it, then click on connect, and you'll see that it will connect. And you might be wondering, well, what the hell is all of this? Well, I'm going to explain. These are all the different databases you have. You're now connected to your local host where you can create different databases. You can create whatever you want. So let's create a database. I'm going to call this database tutorial MERN, or just tutorial MERN like this. But you don't have to call it that. You can call it whatever you want. And remember that we want to create a table that stores information about friends, right? So let's create a table called friends. I'm going to create one called friends. You can call it whatever you want. So friends. Collections are the tables. So in SQL databases, you have tables. We're not going to have tables, but we're going to have collections, which is a bit different, but I'll explain to you guys. So I created a database called tutorial MERN, and I created a table or a collection called friends. I'm going to click on create database, and you can see that at the bottom it will appear. So we can click on this, and you'll see there's going to be a collection called friends, which currently doesn't have any data inside of it. But that's fine because we're going to start working with it. So now that you have this working, we're going to come here to our Visual Studio Code, and we're going to start setting up our Mongoose connection. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to come here and we're going to import Mongoose, which is equal to require Mongoose. So we just imported the package, and right at the bottom here we need to set up a space to create the connection. So this is where we're going to connect to the database. I'm just going to comment here database connection so you guys can clearly see. And in order to connect to a MongoDB database with Mongoose, you can just say mongoose.connect. Then you need to pass the same link that I told you. So remember we had the link. I still have them. Yeah, I still had it in my clipboard, so I just pasted here. But there's only going to be one single difference. The difference is that right here, before the question mark, you got to put the name of your database. So my database is called tutorial MERN, so I'm going to put exactly that right here. So tutorial MERN. And now we made a connection, but we also need to pass something else, which is just standard. Don't worry if you don't understand this, but we got to put a comma right here and pass a use new URL parser equal to true. Don't worry about this. Just put this whenever, like, remember that you need to put this. It's not important at all for beginners. So whenever you're connecting to Mongoose, just pass this, and that should be fine. But now you might be wondering, we connected, we made the connection, and that's great. We can actually check to see if we made the connection. I'm going to come here to our server terminal again, and I'm going to basically close the connection we had by pressing Ctrl+C, and run it again by writing node index.js again. And you'll see that now, instead of just saying you are connected, it also says that, like, a huge message appears saying that, like, a bunch of stuff about Mongoose, which means it's working. So it's great, right? It means it's working. So what do we need to do now? Well, we need to kind of set up our collection, which is our table, right? This idea of what kind of data we're going to insert. How do we do that? Well, we usually create a folder called models. So we're going to come here to our server and create a folder called models. And inside of here, we can add all the different models that we want in our database. Basically, all the different collections, all the different tables we want to have. We want to create one called friends. So friends.js. And inside of here is where stuff starts to get cool. Because we're going to define our model, our collection, our table inside of our code. Instead of like when you work with usually with SQL, you define it on your whatever service you're using or database you're using. We're going to define it in our code. So we're going to write const mongoose equals to require mongoose, and then we're going to say const, and we got to give a name for our collection. Usually collection or no, this isn't actually the collection. This is the name for the database. So usually database is also called schema. So that's why you might be confused sometimes. So let's kind of, we're going to write schema here, but we mean database. So what is the name of our database? Well, it's actually called tutorial MERN, but I just wrote that name for whatever reason. Let's pretend like it's called friend schema. So we're gonna give it a name of friend schema. It's the friend database. It's a database for our information about our friends. And then we're gonna set it equal to new mongoose dot schema. So dot schema. Sorry about my keyboard. And inside of here we can pass an object, and this object will be kind of like the representation of our schema, of our table. So what do we want, right? Well, we want basically the name of our friend, so name. That's one thing we want. And how do you define all the properties of the person's name? Like if you want to, like we want name to be a string, right? So how do we do that? Well, we pass an object inside of here, and we can give stuff, for example, like type. So a name will be a string. And we also want to make it required so that you can't like insert a friend without putting a name. So we're going to say required equal to true. And let's say something else, like we want to add our friend's age, which again, it is of type number this time. Is it number? I think it's number. Yeah, number. Then we're going to say required equal to true as well. And let's add a final thing which isn't going to be required true. Let's add description, something random like description. It's the description of our friend. We don't really need to put it in our database, but if we want, we can add a simple like description about our friend. And it's a type of string, but required equal to false. Okay, so this is our schema, this is our collection, this is what we want, right? Where we're creating a schema in our database. So then what we need to do now is we need to create the access to our basically our collection. So we're grabbing our collection, our table, and we're gonna call it friend model. So this is the name of our collection, so our model, and we're gonna set it equal to mongoose.model, which basically means we're gonna create here. Then we're gonna put the name of our collection, of our table, inside of here. What is the name of our table? It is friends. So we're basically saying that this right here will represent the instance of that collection, so that we can use this to make all the different requests. Now with this variable right here, we can insert things into the database of into the table of friends. We can also get information from there. It's this basic idea, right? So let's call it friends. And what we're gonna pass here is this friend schema that we have above. So friend schema, not friend model. So friend schema. So this is the syntax. We're going to create a model which is going to be represented by the schema we defined here, and it's going to be representing the friends collection. And at the bottom we're going to say module.exports equal to friend model. Okay, now what does that mean? Basically, when we require this friends file, we're gonna get this. This is what it's exporting when we try to require this. And you'll see why this is important. Well, if we come here to our index.js, imagine we want to, let's add some fake data, right? Let's add some data. So let's imagine I want to add, actually it's not that easy to add data here. Let's actually add it individually, right? So just for demonstration purposes, if you want to make a simple route in your application, like app.get, let's say if you go to app.get insert, then we want to insert a small, we want to insert a friend into our database. So how do we do that? Well, we say app.get, we pass the name of the route, then over here we're going to pass a res, meaning a request and a response. This is standard, so whenever you're creating a route in Express, you do it like this. So this is the route, this is basically a request and a response. A request is when you try to get something from the front end, and a response is what you send. So this is the basic idea, right? Now you might be wondering, well, how do we insert the data? So we're gonna come here to the top, and we're gonna say const friend model. So we're gonna create a variable called friend model, which is going to be actually equal to the require. Remember I said we were exporting, so we're gonna come here and say ./models/friends. That means that this variable right now is equal to this. We could have put this code inside of here, but we're trying to kind of like leave it a bit organized. So this is the basic idea. We're just using everything here in this variable. And now we can use this variable to insert and read and do whatever we want with our collection. So inside of here, for example, let's imagine I want to insert stuff into our database. How do I do that? Well, I can come here and say const friend. So I want to get a friend, for example, and we're going to set it equal to new friend model. And what do we pass here? Well, we pass our data. So what do we want to, what is the friend that we want to add? Well, we remember that a friend has a name. So let's add, for example, a friend called, it's going to be it's going to be called John. And remember that you need to pass an age. Let's add 98. I'm not going to pass the description because it's optional, remember? And now that you passed, you basically passed this, this isn't inserted into the database yet. To insert it, you need to basically come here and say friend.save. However, there's an issue. This code and this code are they run at the same time, so it becomes a problem because this might not be finished before we call this. So what do we do? And this might seem a bit confusing if you've never worked with asynchronous code before in JavaScript. We usually just come here and say async. And honestly, if you're not bothered to learning asynchronous code, which is totally fine because it's something really annoying, just remember that you need to put this, and it's very simple. You just put async here, and right here you put await, right? You put await. So we're telling it to wait for our friend.save. So let's see how it works, right? So at the end, we also want to kind of like just res.send. We're gonna send a message saying inserted data, and you'll see what happens. When we try to reach this over here, if I come here and say /insert, as I mentioned there, when I do this, it will run this. It will try to insert this data into the database. Then, if it does, if it finishes and inserts everything, it's going to send this message, and this message will appear right here. So let's see if this is working. How do we test this? Let's close our connection. We saved our thing, and now let's run node index.js again. Now that we ran this, let's check our database. It's obviously empty. And now let's refresh our page, and like we are inside of the /insert. Let's refresh our page. You see it said inserted data, but that's still not 100% like a fact that it's working. The only way to check it, if we refresh this database, this collection, the data we inserted should be here. So let's click on it, and you can see that John, who is 98 years old, appears in our database. And that's awesome. That's literally awesome. That's everything we wanted. So what else can we do? Well, let's try to read this data. Let's try to get everything. Let's try actually inserting another person. I'm going to try to add Jessica. She's 38 years old. I'm going to try again. How do I do this? I again restart the server. I close it, and I write node index.js, and it says you're connected. I'm going to refresh the page, and now Jessica appears. Oh, I wrote Jessica wrong. Yeah. So now we have two people, right? So the last thing I'm going to show you in this video is trying to read this data. How do I read this data? Well, let's create another app.get. It's going to be called read data. And by the way, this isn't what we're going to be like in this video. I'm not going to show you guys the React part. In the next video, I'm going to show React because I don't want to make this video super long to lose you guys halfway through the video. I want you guys to get the information. So read over here, And instead of putting instead of saving stuff like we did with the insert, it's gonna be really simple. We're gonna grab the friend model, and we're gonna say dot find. So this find will basically say, it basically says search for something in the database. But you can search for something specific. You may want to find the user, for example, who has the name John, or who has this specific ID. By the way, when you create something in a database, it generates an ID for that insert automatically. So don't worry, you didn't have to put an ID. So you can do that. But for now, let's just see everything in our database. How do we get everything from our database? You just put an empty object right here. So open and close curly braces, and that's fine. And what do we do next? Well, you simply just grab an error. So it's a function which might have some errors. So if there's any errors, we're gonna see, and it's gonna have a result. So we're gonna pass a function inside of here, and we're gonna check first if there's any errors. Obviously, we wanna, for now, let's just console.log. Actually, no, let's res.send. We wanna see the error. Res.send error. Else, let's res.send result. So if you saw from the, if this is your first time working with Express, when you are inside of your localhost 3001, which is where our server is running, when you say res.send and this is a GET request, the message you put inside of it appears here. That means that if we are sending the error, we're going to be able to see the error appearing here. And if we're getting our actual, the actual people from the database, we're going to see it displayed right here. So let's save this and let's close our connection. Then open nodeindex.js again, and let's go to the /read route. Let's try that. So /insert, let's go to the /read, and let's see if every user appears. So 1, 2, 3, and apparently it broke. Let's see what happened. Let's check. Throw error. Cannot set headers after they're sent by the client. What does that mean? Oh, I know what it means. This is just dumb. I forgot to erase this. This was from the previous one. So let's save this. If you got the same error, sorry about that. Let's run again. So I just erased the res.send inserted data that was below here. And let's run nodeindex.js again. It's connected. Let me refresh the page. And now you can see it's an array of all elements in the database. First of all, there's John. And then there's Jessic, because I forgot to put the A. So that's the basic idea. We set up Mongo. We started working with Mongoose. We set up our Express server. We also have our React application, but we didn't do any work on that. We're going to do it on the next video. But it's fine because we defined our schema. We have our database working. I taught you guys how to insert data. I taught you guys how to receive data. So that's fine for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Keep around because I'm going to be posting more about this tutorial series. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe because I'm posting every single day and I would really appreciate it. And I see you guys next time.